welcome. Thanks for watching this clip. For those who haven't seen me, I'm Dr. John Waller, the one who found the framework, and with me is Dr. John O'Andrews, a friend, colleague, senior clinical specialist, and who's been familiar with the framework now over the last 12 years or so and uses it a lot. In fact, is also in the process of writing his first book, The Heart and Mind. Jono, thanks again for joining, and it's just been great journeying with you, and would really be interested in terms of maybe you're unpacking a little bit more about your view of the benefits of the steps and shapes for you as a senior clinician in psychology. Yeah.
I guess one of the benefits that I've found is that there's no it prevents me from being a devotee to any particular sort of mode of therapy, and yet doesn't exclude any sort of devotion either, I think. So I think it gives consideration and validity to a whole lot of different approaches, and that's something that I think I've really appreciated about it. I guess the open-mindedness of it.
It's a broad, inclusive framework, not a model, something which actually invites one to look at.
Yeah, so that's right. In that regard, it's not a new wave, it's not a new thing. It's an attempt to take in... I guess it's an acknowledgement that human beings are complex. They're not simple. They're not easy to understand. And there are many perspectives that are going to be helpful and constructive.
So with that, being a framework, and you seeing the range of complex clients who you do see, how do you find it in terms of actually being able to understand the individual idiosyncratic aspects of each of the clients, in terms of, on the one hand, it seems to have a universal application, but it seems also to be unique to the person at a very deep level, which is the sort of setting you're in your practice.
So how do I understand them in their individuality?
Yeah, their individuality. You're applying something which is very generic to various individuals, and you're saying you find that quite helpful. It doesn't detract from the either models, but also I think I'm hearing you possibly saying it doesn't detract from the individuality, that thumbprint of the person in front of you.
Yeah, and that's a good image for it as well. I think so, because it's a framework. It's I often think of that game hooky, you know, that game where you throw little rings.
Little rings, okay.
Yeah, it's like a dartboard, except it's got these little hooks, and you throw little. It's because it's a framework. It's not as if I have a checklist of different things that I want them to tick off, but it's more I have pegs onto which I hang different things, and I'm led by them. So it's very much when I'm with someone, they help me paint a picture on the canvas that's in front of me, that is my piece of paper with circles and arrows and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so it provides a structure on which you can apply the individual particular issues. Is that right?
Yeah, and do so with them. Yeah,
and with them. Yeah, and you're just so good at connecting as well. It's one of your real strengths. Jono, you're now writing this book, Heart and Mind, or in fact, it's now become 2 books. How's the framework helped you to really focus on these issues, which is dear to your heart, and you're just so good at connecting, at understanding, and responding in the appropriate ways?
I think that's one of the beauties, particularly, or I guess in a lot of the shapes, is one of the most obvious things about Christian wholeness is that it doesn't neglect the spirit. It's seen as psychologically valid. It's an important part of people's journeys. I think most people would be, some people would be very surprised, and some people wouldn't be surprised at all if you ask the general population, have you ever prayed when you're upset? And I think there's some people who go to church who'd never be surprised at the answer, and there are some people who the opposite is true. They would be very surprised. So there's that as well, but one of the things I also find is that the heart, that is a sense of connection and direction and safety and value and all the things that are associated with the heart, are also given a validity, much like the spirit is. And I think that's a really important part of human functioning, and the Bible talks a lot about that.
about living from the inside out.
It talks about our heart, and what happens to our hearts in the journey that particularly different Old Testament figures have in their relationship with God.
So lastly, what proportion of your clients would you use the framework, and in particular which shape would you predominantly use?
I think the one that I most often have in my head is the cure.
The steps.
And I use that all the time. I use every day. I use the circles with people as well. So, but I don't. I think I'd probably use the cure with everyone.
And you live the cure, Jono. You're a person who walks the steps, and there's so much more Dr. Andrews has to say. It's just a real pleasure being with you again, Jono, and thanks so much. In fact, I was looking at the video of one about 10 years ago, and it was fantastic. You look a little bit younger then. Hey, thanks very much for coming, and thanks for watching, and really hope that this is a help, particularly for those who've got professional clinical practices at a senior level in terms of Dr. Andrews and his experience. Thanks again. Bye.